favorite Fox News reporters were able to attend because they were fully vaccinated and boosted. This year, with that $787 million settlement, they're here because they couldn't say no to a free meal.
Joe Biden at the White House Correspondent Association dinner. You heard all of the Democrat booster. It's like the Booster Club. It's like the Biden campaign in black tie. It really is the most important part of the Biden campaign, obviously. He can dwell in the basement between now and Election Day. And the press will operate the campaign for him. It is good to be a Democrat, am I right? Well, happy Monday and welcome unto you. Hope you had a swell weekend. I had an interesting weekend. I was at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. President Joseph Robinette Biden, Lunch Bucket Joe, he was there. He was all gussied up and made up. He had a lot of makeup on, and one of my brothers in Chicago texted me late on Saturday night. He said, well, when Biden walked out on stage, he looked almost lifelike. And another said something about Disney animatronics, because Lunch Bucket Joe, he is, boy, oh boy, let me tell you. Now, I was at the dinner as a guest of Newsmax Television. I've been doing some work with Newsmax Television doing the Biden Chronicles. I think that Joe Biden probably hasn't seen those. It would interfere with his schedule of watching Hazel. He likes Hazel. He loves, hey, Mr. B. He loves that Shirley Booth. And so he doesn't watch Newsmax. And at the White House, they don't really watch the news at all. They're oblivious to everything that's going on in the world. There was a big bank collapse over the weekend, the second largest bank collapse since the 2008 fiscal crisis. And we got a Republican member of Congress blaming Washington and the irresponsible and reckless policies of politicians in Washington for that. But back to Joe Biden and the White House Correspondents' Dinner, because I was there. I was wearing a tuxedo, as you might imagine. Did you rent it? No, I actually own a tuxedo. I have two tuxedos. I have two. I have one with a shawl lapel and one with a notch lapel. I don't have one with a peak lapel, a classical traditional. I don't. I do have white tie and tails, though. I have white tie and tail. I don't have a top hat, but I have white tie and tails. Because I once attended the Gridiron Dinner here in Washington, D.C. But enough about me. Let's get back to Joe Biden and me. Because I did go up on stage during the dinner, and I accepted an award that was being given to my recently deceased stepfather, a longtime CBS News correspondent and a longtime White House correspondent. He covered the White House from the beginning of the Reagan administration until the end of the Obama administration. For a very long time, a newsman and an extraordinary career as a newsman. He was with Martin Luther King crossing the Pettus Bridge. I think I may have mentioned this recently on the radio, actually, that when a Democrat campaign volunteer shot and killed Martin Luther King, and that is a true fact, James Earl Ray was a volunteer for the Democrat presidential campaign of Democrat Governor George Wallace, and then who was a racist and a segregationist and a Democrat, and then he went and shot and killed the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King in Memphis. And my stepfather, who had again been covering the civil rights movement and covering Martin Luther King, winged his way down to Memphis right away. And he was, I think I said recently, was ushered back into the room by the coroner there in Memphis to view the remains, the slain remains of Martin Luther King Jr. On a slab. And he never told me that story until about 2 years ago. That's another story that he never told. But it's an amazing story and part of his amazing career. And so he was given he covered the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago, where he grew up, and the riots and all of that stuff. And an amazing career. Then Washington and politics, presidential campaigns, and then the White House. In any event, they were giving an award posthumously, obviously, to my stepfather. And my stepfather, Bill Plante, and his widow was unavailable for professional reasons, was out of the area, out of the city, because of previously scheduled obligations. And so she asked, would you go to the dinner? I was going to be at the dinner anyway with Newsmax. Would you go to the dinner and accept the award on her behalf? And so I did that on Saturday night. Now, as a result of that, I ended up on stage with President Joseph Robinette Biden, a.k.a. Lunch Bucket Joe, and shaking his hand and standing for a quick photo, and then stopping and warm and hearty greeting from Kamala Harris. And so I'll share some more detail about that as we go forward. But let's go to some audio from the dinner itself. And Joseph Robinette Biden, now they're taking it was a very political event because it's a room full of Democrats. I was wearing a bow tie, tuxedo, bow tie, black bow tie with elephants, with a pattern of elephants on it, which earned me a lot of looks from people in the room, looking at me cockeyed and cross-eyed and puzzled. Wait a minute, there's somebody here that would wear a bow tie with elephants on it? Because that's a symbol of the Republican Party, and this is not a Republican Party event. Now, I've been to many White House Correspondents' dinners in the past, and long ago, it was not nearly as political as it is now. My first White House Correspondents' dinner was during the Reagan administration, and I was a sapling, very young, in my 20s, and it was really cool, and it was dazzling, and I was new to Washington, and it was great stuff. And Ronald Reagan was president. Ronald Reagan spoke, and he did jokes, and he was funny, and I think that might have been the year that Nancy Reagan spoke also and did jokes. And I've been to dinners with various presidents over the years and so on. And I was trying to do the math on how many presidents I've met now. And it kind of depends on how you score a little bit, whether I got to hang out and talk to them or whether, shake their hands, pictures with them, or whether I just got to ask them a few questions while I was standing there with a camera crew, things like that. But Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush a little bit, but we didn't hang out and talk. Bill Clinton, W. Bush, definitely. So I already mentioned Clinton and Joe Biden I met when he was a senator, but this is the first time meeting him as president. I never met Barack Obama. That's 8 years where they skipped over. I can't believe I never got an invitation to the Christmas party during the 8 years of the Obama presidency. Just kidding. But the Republicans, they invite all Democrat press, because that's about all there is, to the White House Christmas party, and that's who you get at the Correspondents' dinner too. Now again, very political. Joe Biden taking shots at Fox News, at Tucker Carlson personally. The so-called comedian taking shots at Fox News, Tucker Carlson, and he's African American, the comedian, and he's taking shots at Clarence Thomas. Shot after shot at Clarence Thomas, by the way, too. And the important thing is how the crowd responds, because it's a crowd of supposed to be objective journalists, Washington journalists. In fact, you look at that room, and it's pretty much everything that's wrong with America in one room. Pretty amazing stuff. Ran into the athlete formerly known as Bruce Jenner, and who was there with the swimmer Riley Gaines, because Caitlyn Jenner now supports Riley Gaines, meaning that Caitlyn Jenner is on the correct side of that debate. And who was it? Somebody said over the weekend, tells you everything you need to know about Fox News, that they fired Tucker Carlson but still employ Caitlyn Jenner. That's a kind of a statement on Fox News these days. But let's go to a very political, even before I went up on stage and hung out with the President of the United States very briefly. But here is Joe Biden at the Correspondents' dinner.
In a lot of ways, this dinner sums up my first 2 years in office.
A lot of ways, you're sure.
I'll talk for 10 minutes,
I'll
take
talk.
0 questions, and cheerfully walk away.
They love it. They didn't love it too much. The crowd was actually fairly docile compared to years past, because they're all miserable because they can't be happy. They can't have joyous times, joyous moments, joyous evenings, and so they were struggling a bit. Well, sounds like he's been drinking, but I think he doesn't drink. I'm sorry, what? Paddles. Call in the doctor, call in a stray. They rolled him out in an iron lung, opened it up, and he stepped out. They dusted him off a little bit, and he took his seat. Sounds a little like I come out, I talk for 10 minutes, I don't take any questions, and then I wander off and bump into furniture. And they all clap. Yeah, that's pretty much true. That's the thing. Man, there was CNN covered the whole thing live, bumper to bumper. Oh, speaking of which, we shot some screenshots from CNN of me with Joe Biden up on stage and me with Kamala Harris up on stage. And we posted them so you can add captions. You can add captions to the photos. Posted them on the Twitter, the Facebook, and Instagram so that you can go on there, take a look. The various social media. Our great friend Kevin Tober posting them. He does our social media for us, also with the Media Research Center. And they're posted on Facebook, Twitter, the 2 photos. And you can add, if you wish yourself, or just read the captions that people are adding to the photos of me on the stage with the President of the United States and the Vice President. But CNN covering it live. And then they had a guy who was a Republican strategist by the name of Scott Jenkins, who was asked, well, what do you think about Joe Biden's performance? And he talked about the joke that you just heard. During my first 2 years, it's like this. I talk for 10 minutes, and I don't take any questions, and then I wander off.
The line that will stick with me is, in a lot of ways, this dinner sums up my first 2 years in office. I'll talk for 10 minutes, take 0 questions, and cheerfully walk away. I'm just going to, for the journalist in the room, he wasn't laughing with you. He was laughing at you. I mean, the reality is, I think he's mocking the press. The guy does not take questions, and he's up there joking about it. And they're clapping and they're laughing about it. And I don't know. I think he owes, I'm pro reporter. And I think the President of the United States ought to have to talk to these reporters and not mock them.
Yeah. Trump wore them out almost every day. He took so many questions that they were exhausted and had to lay down by the time he was done answering their questions. Joe Biden, CNN had, I think, probably more tables there than anybody, but you weren't going to find Don Lemon, at least, sitting upright at any of the tables.
Call me old.
Call me old. Yeah.
I call it being seasoned.
Seasoned.
You say I'm ancient. I say I'm wise. You say I'm over the hill. Don Lemon would say that's a man in his prime.
John Lemon would say that's the man in his prime. Little Don Lemon jokes. He said that, a woman in their 40s is past her prime running for president. And then, of course, you got to take shots at Fox News and Tucker Carlson.
We really have a record to be proud of.
You do?
Vaccinated the nation.
Vaccinated the nation.
Transformed the economy.
Transform.
Earned historic legislative victories and midterm results.
Historic.
The job isn't finished.
The Republicans won the House.
I mean, it is finished for Tucker Carlson. What are you wooing about like that? Like you think that's not reasonable? Give me a break.
So give me a break. No, I'm not kidding. I'm serious. This is not hyperbole. They're not the only shot at Tucker Carlson on Saturday night. A lot of them, because it's a very partisan crowd, and they have ratings envy and success envy, popularity envy. How many views did Tucker Carlson's 2-minute video end up with? Last time I looked, it was 75 million, I think. Boy, oh boy. Growing up in Chicago, I used to envy my neighbors that get their deliveries of Omaha steaks, grill them up in the backyard, dad out there with a cold beer, smoking a cig. Now Omaha Steaks is rewriting the book on burgers with an all-new handmade texture for the juiciest home-style burgers that you've ever tasted. Their pure ground burgers are made from single cuts of real aged Omaha steaks. These are truly steaks on a bun. Filet mignon, ribeye, New York strip steak, sirloin, even brisket burgers. Now's the time to experience the exclusive Burger Perfection Flight for just $79.99. All you have to do is go to omahasteaks.com, use the promo code PLANTE, that's me, at checkout, and you're going to get an extra $20 off your order, plus free shipping because you hang with me. You get all four of the pure ground burgers, so you can sample all the steak on a bun greatness. These burgers are crafted for a juicier, more tender experience, making your mouth water with every single bite. But don't wait. Go to omahasteaks.com, use the promo code PLANTE at checkout, and get $20 off Burger Perfection Flight and discover your new burger obsession. A minimum order may be required. Yeah, the White House Correspondent Dinner. C-SPAN and CNN. Yeah. They had, it's all a television show. Our entire political system is a terrible television show. And I had a bit part on Saturday night. I'll get to that. Hey, Chris here with some exciting news. Now you can listen to me live on the WMAL app. Doesn't matter if you're in your car, in the office, on the go. The WMAL app delivers crystal clear, around-the-clock news coverage anywhere with cell service or Wi-Fi. So don't miss a second of your favorite shows. Download the WMAL app today on the Apple App Store or at Google Play Store. Well, I still have a lot of audio to get to, and I want to tell you about the fun I had talking to Joe Biden on Saturday night and Kamala Harris. The circumstances were such where I was, of course, on my best behavior. And unlike the rest of the people in the room, I wasn't there to be political. So I'm one of the few people in the room who is allowed to be political for a living. Yet, really, pretty much everybody in the room is more political than I am. I've also got more for you today, attacks on the Supreme Court, because the Democrats, great story telling the truth about the Democrats in the Gateway Pundit. Democrats are mounting a campaign to delegitimize the Supreme Court. Why would they do that? Well, I will explain. And over the weekend, an attack on Justice Roberts' wife, Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, and his wife, Jane Roberts, who is apparently a very successful attorney. And now the attacks are on her because, and you'll note that none of the lefty jurists are held to a standard anywhere remotely similar to the standard that identifiably conservative justices are held, because they're attempting to delegitimize the court. They're laying the groundwork. It's the long game to pack the court with radical leftists. That's their plan. They're very sinister. And also, Hollywood people now apologizing for characters they played on television long ago, like Apu on The Simpsons, Hank Azaria, and the woman that played Pat on Saturday Night Live. That's coming up. And the Democrats undermining the Supreme Court for greedy, power-drunk, selfish, corrupt reasons. And it's an orchestrated and sustained campaign, and it's racist. And they know it's racist, so now they've started attacking Justice Roberts and his wife as well, because there is nothing that is beneath them. They are the left. They're not liberals. They're really not on Team America at all. They're just ravenous, craving power, and will destroy the world to secure one more seat in the Senate. You see Ro Khanna, the Democrat from California, saying that it's time for Senator Dianne Feinstein to resign. What did he say? Graciously, to get out because she missed a vote that Joe Biden was going to ruin the economy more, and she missed the vote. So now Democrats are out of the closet, a lot of closets today, telling her it's time for her to resign because they're craving more power, and they think this is one more avenue to more power. So The Daily Show has a person that identifies as a comedian. His name is Roy Wood Jr. Roy Wood Jr. And he was the entertainment, I'm making quotation marks with my fingers, at the White House Correspondents Association dinner night before last, Saturday night in Washington, D.C., at the Washington Hilton, which is the hotel where Ronald Reagan was shot by John Hinckley. And the Democrats, they buy all the tickets they can to John Hinckley's guitar performances, and they buy all his T-shirts, because the Democrat Party is not what it used to be. It's kind of a third world party, and they don't know how many genders there are, and they can't tell you what a woman is, and they don't believe in science or genetics, or they're erasing their own history, the history of the 20th century, the science of the 20th century. But let's get back to the Correspondents' Dinner. Roy Wood Jr. is his name, and he was the entertainment for the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So naturally, attacking Fox News to the pleasure of the audience, attacking Tucker Carlson, and then attacking Clarence Thomas. He's a black guy. I talk about this all the time. They always get the black guy to attack the black guy, right? Senator Tim Scott. They have a designated black guy that attacks Senator Tim Scott, because it would be racist for a white guy to attack Tim Scott. They do it anyway, but because they're hypocrites, and were it not for double standards, liberals would have no standards at all. And they always get a woman to attack the woman. If you want to attack Tulsi Gabbard, they can't have the men do it. They have the women do it. You remember when Hillary Clinton said Tulsi Gabbard was an agent of Russia and Putin. She also said the 2016 election was stolen, and that the 2020-24 election will be stolen, that the plot is already underway, a vast right-wing conspiracy. VRWC, the VRWC, as we call it in Washington. Daily Show alleged comedian Roy Wood Jr. at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Scandals have been devouring careers this year. The untouchable Tucker Carlson is out of a job. Now, okay, some people celebrate it. But to Tucker's staff, I want you to know that I know what you're feeling. I work at The Daily Show, so I too have been blindsided by the sudden departure of the host of a fake news program.
Tucker Carlson, of course, way ahead of the people in the room on story after story, and telling the truth on story after story that these people buried. Let's just start with Hunter Biden's laptop. By the way, Hunter Biden is in court today in Arkansas, only because a judge ordered him to be there. Because Hunter Biden is crying poor mouth, did you know this? And because he's not paying his child support, and he doesn't want to pay child support for the bastard child that he sired with a Washington, D.C. exotic dancer. So Hunter Biden may be held accountable for the first time in his life in baby mama case, the baby mama case. It's London Roberts and London Roberts' daughter, Navy Joan Roberts, named her Navy. Hunter Biden was kicked out of the Navy for repeated cocaine abuse violations, and he's got a daughter named Navy. No wonder he doesn't want to be reminded of her. Just one more reason. Every reason. And, Joe Biden, he always gets wrong how many grandchildren he has. Jill Biden gets wrong how many grandchildren Joe Biden has, too. And I guess she has. It's, Hunter's not her biological son. So there it is. Tucker Carlson. And, Jon Stewart left. And then he stole my joke about Wuhan and Hershey's chocolate factory in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And the media, Tucker, got fired. Roy Wood Jr.
We got to get Tucker back on the air, Mr. President, because right now there's millions of Americans that don't even know why they hate you.
Well, that's half true, actually, as nary has heard a discouraging word about Joe Biden or his administration, as long as the people in this room are in charge of the message. Huh? And I got to tell you, because millions of people don't even know why they hate you. Well, it's it's the propaganda, the information dominance of the American left, the media dominance of the American left. And then he decided to throw in Don Lemon. Again, he's a black guy, so he can go after it. But Don Lemon is also gay. He checks 2 boxes. So he could be a homophobe. I think Roy Wood Jr. might be a homophobe.
Tucker Carlson is the first host to get fired from Fox News for something that's only partially about how he treats women. That's progress. He shattered the whole ceiling. Speaking of assholes, Don Lemon is out of a job.
Lots of CNN tables there. The whole CNN gang was there at the White House Correspondent Center. Now, about how he treats women, really? And you notice that the crowd didn't respond much to that because they're all very nervous about that. They're all very uncomfortable. Hey, where in the world is Matt Lauer? I guess Matt Lauer's not in the room. He's at his ranch in New Zealand. I think there's a button under his desk at his ranch in New Zealand that locks women in the room. You know, the one in Rockefeller Plaza with the closet full of sex toys. And hey, where's Mark Halperin? Where's Mark Halperin? How long is the list of Democrats that have been tossed out because of, the CEO of NBC Universal was forced out because of sexual impropriety just a couple of weeks ago. The list is long but not distinguished of network news, television anchors and executives and producers who have gone the way of Matt Lauer because of sexual abuses. And I guess Bill Clinton wasn't there. You don't want to do those sexual abuse jokes when Bill Clinton's in the room. Hillary wasn't there either. They were at home throwing ashtrays and lamps at each other. That's your Democrat Party. And then, you see, it was time to go after Clarence Thomas because they got the black guy. He's an alleged comedian. He's from Comedy Central. And they are on a jihad to delegitimize the U.S. Supreme Court because they're tilling the soil. They're prepping the battlefield because Elizabeth Warren said it again recently. It's time to pack the Supreme Court with radical left-wingers that will vote the Democrat Party way every time. Also a little update on the leak, but here is Roy Wood Jr.
I think Republicans, y'all would be surprised, man, if y'all would just be real about what CRT is. You can be surprised. Some black folks might meet you halfway. But you got to tell the truth. You can't lie to black people. Call it what it is. Anti-CRT policies are an attack on black history and an attempt to erase the contributions of black people from the history books.
That's a political lie, of course.
You are trying to erase black people, and a lot of black people wouldn't mind some of that erasure as long as that black person is Clarence Thomas.
As long as that black person is Clarence Thomas. See that there. And Senator Tim Scott, who I don't believe was at the dinner. There were not a lot of Republicans at the. Usually, when I started going to these years ago, the room would be not half and half, but the networks and the news organizations would invite members of Congress from the Republican Party in almost equal numbers to representatives, senators, House members, cabinet members, and so on. They'd invite almost equal numbers. So you'd see a lot of Republican members of Congress and a lot of Democrat members of Congress. Not this time. Not this time. Very, very few Republicans. And not a lot of Republican media. Newsmax was there, certainly, and I was there with Newsmax. Now, the Clarence Thomas thing, the attacks on Clarence Thomas will continue because, now, here's the story from the Gateway Pundit that I pulled over the weekend. Democrats are mounting a campaign to delegitimize the U.S. Supreme Court by Mike LaChance. Mike LaChance. And it's a thoughtful and intelligent piece. As we recently pointed out, he writes, Elizabeth Warren is still pressuring her party to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. That is not a coincidence. The liberal media has been busy the last few weeks publishing story after story about ethics violations along the conservative justices on the court. Now, it's pretty amazing. The Democrat Attorney General, among the SCOTUS-related Supreme Court of the United States acronym, among the SCOTUS-related stories that major outlets have broken the last few weeks, the Washington Post discovered Clarence Thomas has been declaring income from Ginger Holdings, LLC, instead of Ginger Limited Partnership since 2006. Now, you see, they're declaring the income. Oops, the company actually changed its name during the course of this. So that's what you have as a bookkeeping error. But the news media and the Democrats, but I repeat myself, are still all over this and smearing them. And I read to you last week a very intelligent piece by a great attorney and author, Mark Paoletta, who is a friend of mine, wrote a very intelligent piece, I believe was in National Review, explaining the rules for the Supreme Court and explaining that no rules have been violated by Clarence Thomas. But pay no attention to that. They are attempting to delegitimize the court because their longer-term goal is to pack the court. Senator Mike Lee tweeted out on April 29th, a couple of days ago, oh yeah, it's Happy May Day, Democrats, the international, socialist movement. Radical leftists, Mike Lee tweeted, radical leftists are trying to destroy the Supreme Court so they can recreate it in their own image. That's exactly what's going on. And the Gateway Pundit story, this is a direct attack on the rule of law from the party that claims to be the protectors of democracy. They're, of course, absolutely nothing of the kind. Now, the left launched an attack against, and by the way, there was a fascinating political cartoon in the Washington Post on Saturday morning. It's a cartoonist known for conservative political perspectives, Michael Ramirez, with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And it is a depiction of Justice Clarence Thomas in black robe standing out in the middle of what is clearly Arches National Park in Utah. And he's standing on a giant target. Now, it's like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. And there's Wile E. Coyote standing under a giant rock ledge. And the word politics is on the giant rock ledge next to one of the arches in Arches National Park. And this giant, huge cliff piece of a mountain is about to drop on Wile E. Coyote. And Wile E. Coyote, standing underneath it, looking distraught and concerned, has the label media next to him. So the media is Wile E. Coyote. And once again, they keep trying to nail Clarence Thomas. And they're phony attacks. They're attacks. They're racists. Joe Biden was the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee that started the high-tech lynching of Clarence Thomas in 1991, and it continues to this day, and now Joe Biden's in the White House. Boy, the more things change. And this cartoon, I think we'll post this cartoon. The politics about to drop on Wile E. Coyote's head. They keep trying to massacre Clarence Thomas, and they keep failing. But there's another story that came out over the weekend. Jane Roberts, who is married to Chief Justice John Roberts, made $10.3 million in commissions from elite law firms, whistleblower documents show. Well, you could just look at tax records because it turns out that Jane Roberts is a very successful Washington lawyer and was before her husband was nominated to be the Chief Justice of the United States. And when he became Chief Justice, Jane Sullivan Roberts made a pivot. She had a long and distinguished career as a lawyer. She refashioned herself as a legal recruiter, matchmaking. You pair people up, lawyers with corporations. And she got out of the business of taking on cases and clients because she wanted to avoid any perception of a conflict of interest. And in doing that, she did the right thing. So there are no conflicts of interest, but she still kept a job. And in Washington, a lot of lawyers make a lot of money. And over the course of a great many years, she's made more than $10 million. And now they're attacking her and Justice Roberts because Justice Roberts' wife is a successful Washington lawyer who has made a solid living after sidestepping her legal career and finding a new avenue, but still they're attacking her. This is about delegitimizing the court so they can pack it with left-wing radicals. It's about the war for public opinion. It's about information dominance. As their boy Joseph Goebbels said of the Socialist Workers' Party, a lie told once remains a lie told 1,000 times becomes the truth. You know, the banking crisis is spiraling. Another bank collapse over the weekend. The second largest bank failure just took place since 2008 over the weekend. And Americans need a place to turn to protect our hard-earned savings. You know, you really can't trust a bank at this point. You need to diversify now. Time to call my friends at American Alternative Assets. Call them at 888-4GOLD20, 4GOLD20, to get your free personal wealth protection guide. They're going to help you protect your retirement savings by rolling over your IRA or 401k into physical gold IRA. Fact is, you can hold physical gold and silver in your retirement account while maintaining its tax-deferred status, all outside of the banking system. So call 888-4GOLD20. Call them today to get your free wealth protection guide. American Alternative Assets has earned an A-plus accreditation from the Better Business Bureau. So protect your savings now before it's too late. Call American Alternative Assets at 888-4GOLD20 to secure your free gold and silver guide today. Individual results may vary. There's no guarantee that past performance will be indicative of future results. Seek your own legal, tax, investment, and financial advice before opening an account. Yeah, but they never give up the attacks on the court because they've got a long-term plan. They're like commies. They've got a 100-year plan, like the Chinese commies. And they will never relent. They will continue to smear. Now, where are all the stories about the Democrat nominees to the court and all of their finances? Where are those? There are none. Why?
Did I hear you correctly say that perhaps he was influenced by Gurgle?
Al Franken is a failed comedian, a failed actor, and a failed senator. He now has a podcast called Groping with Al Franken. And he's attacking the Supreme Court as illegitimate because it's an all-hands-on-deck Democrat Party team effort.
The court is a very divisive entity now, institution right now.
Because you guys made it that way.
The Supreme Court, to me, is illegitimate the way they didn't take up Garland.
They didn't take up Garland. Merrick Garland.
On the saying it's an election year, and then they, of course, put in Coney Barrett.
That's the Harry Reid rule.
Days before the election.
Harry Reid rule.
But and then, of course, Dobbs and abortion.
Abortion. If only Al Franken had been aborted. Failed Democrat senator. I might be willing to make some exceptions, but there it is. It's illegitimate. And I just read you the story about delegitimizing the court, and they've got Al Franken, a former senator, failed comedian, using the word illegitimate. What a coincidence.